Greetings, Brewster residents. We'll be presenting the Board of Education Budget Development presentation from March 27th. We presented our revenues, general support, and employee benefits. Here's some of the challenges that we face here in Brewster. The State Controller's Office has identified Brewster as experiencing environmental stress. They created an objective measure of both environmental and fiscal stress indicators. Pleased to announce that Brewster is not facing fiscal stress. However, we are facing environmental stress based on the indicators identified by the state, which are an average class size for students in grades K through 8. The state has identified 22 as the appropriate class size. Brewster, based on 2016-17 figures, Brewster's class size was 24. They also identified the change in the tax base as an indicator. Brewster's change in the tax base was minus 2%. Their benchmark was minus 1%. Also, budget pass rate. Their benchmark was greater than 70%. Brewster's pass rate was 68%. English language learners, their benchmark was 3%. Brewster's percentage was 7%. So we now join our neighbors in Carmel and Pauling who are also experiencing environmental stress. And it's something to keep in mind as we continue our budget and long-range planning. Our changing demographics you'll see in the following slide. State aid uncertainty, you may have heard by now, the state is facing a $4 billion budget gap. That's billion with a B. And obviously the impact on the education portion of the budget is going to be stressed. Our allowable tax levy, we are entering year 7 of the allowable tax levy legislation, which is more commonly known as a tax cap, and of course it presents its challenges, but despite those challenges, we are implementing a bold strategic coherence plan. So here's a chart that shows the change in our measures of need as identified by the state. Our economically disadvantaged students have increased from 11 to 33%. Special education classifications remain the same at 13%. However, this is slightly above the statewide average. Our English as a new language students have increased from 4% to 8%. So although our overall enrollment is in a slight decline, the students that remain require more resources than ever before. And I will also note that the state and federal government do provide additional funding for these students. For economically disadvantaged students, we receive Title I funding. We also receive community schools aid. Special education students, we receive IDEA funding, and English as a new language students, we receive community schools aid and also Title III funding. Here's a look at our state aid. There are 8 formulas that are used to calculate our state aid. Foundation aid is the largest component of our state aid, but unfortunately the state has been unable to implement their own formula, which is used to calculate each district's allocation. So what you see in this chart here is a red line, which represents the amount that the state had promised us, and a blue line, which is the amount that the state actually sends us. And this gap is about $4 million, which the state is unable to provide us. So obviously that makes it very challenging as we're developing our budget to know that the state is unable to pay us our fair share in what they had promised us. Here's a chart that shows a 5-year tax levy history. The tax cap went into effect 7 years ago. This chart shows the past 5 years. And the range in tax levy increases has been between 1.3 and 2.3%, with an average of about 1.95%. I just also want to stress that the tax cap, it's not a 2% tax cap. It can be more than 2%, it can be less than 2%. There's an 8-step formula that's used to calculate it. And I also want to note that there is an update from our February 27th meeting, and our 2018-19 tax cap is now 2.22%. This was a result of a building aid reconciliation based on the state's formulas. I also want to note that this number is still tentative and subject to change, pending the final state aid figures, which are due on April 1st. So the main budget drivers, we just reviewed 2 of our revenue drivers. The teacher's retirement system has a rate-to-rate increase of 8.5%. So the state also controls the pension contributions for both our ERS, Employees Retirement System, and our TRS, Teachers Retirement System. Despite the fact that the plan had an investment return of 12.5%, the state is still increasing our contribution 8.5% above the prior year, which is very challenging for us. Health insurance premiums are increasing 3.7%, which is actually relatively good considering what some of the other plans are statewide in terms of the Swiss chip plan and night chip plan, which are two of the largest plans in New York State. However, we in Brewster have a number of newly insured employees. About 10 years ago, when we entered into the Great Recession, we began employing people on a part-time basis. And now that the economy has improved, it's becoming harder and harder to attract and retain part-time employees, and we're forced to hire full-time employees, which is also a good thing for operations. However, with that comes a cost, and within their collective bargaining agreements, full-time employees are entitled to health insurance, and that leads to an increase in our cost. And we just discussed the limited state aid and tax levy. So here's a look at our revenue budget summary. Tax levy makes up the largest component of our revenue at $74.1 million, again an increase of 2.2% within the tax cap. Local sources increased $400,000 or 48%, and that is due to a large pilot agreement, payment in lieu of tax agreement with Ace Endico, which is a good thing for the district and the town and the county. A pilot agreement is an arrangement with a commercial business in order to entice them into the tax base for a reduced tax payment in lieu of being on the tax roll. It works over a period of 10 years, and on the 11th year, the commercial business then becomes fully taxable on the tax roll. State aid increased just $600,000 or 2.9%. However, some of that money is earmarked to pay down our debt for our building projects. Appropriated fund balance is a portion of our savings that we use to offset expenditures of future years, and that number remains unchanged at $2.7 million. That represents roughly 3% of our expenditure budget, and industry standard and controller's audits have suggested that 3% is an appropriate number. Appropriating any more than that would likely result in a budget deficit each year. Any less than that would likely result in a budget surplus each year. So again, that 2.7 million or 3% is an ideal target for break-even operations. However, we also have one additional budget item here, appropriated fund balance, which would be a one-time reduction in fund balance to be used to pay for the JFK paving project. On February 13th, we met to provide an update on the capital project, and we mentioned that we had some unfinished business. Despite all the great work that took place to date, we still needed to pave over at JFK. So we're appropriating $960,000 to the capital fund to perform the paving at JFK, which also includes a large parent drop-off turnaround nearest the turf field. And our architects have provided us with a not-to-exceed number. Any amount not spent from this transfer would, of course, be transferred back to the general fund. Total revenue budget is $99 million, an increase of 3.7%. I will note, absent this one-time appropriated fund balance allocation for the JFK paving project, our revenue budget would be increasing by 2.7%, which is right on line with prior years. State aid is an estimate and subject to change pending the final state budget, which is due on April 1st. So where does the funding come from? Real property taxes, including STAR, make up 75% of our budget, and state aid and state and federal aid makes up another 20% of our budget. Both of those components are controlled by the state, so there's very little local control on how we develop our budgets. The state controls 95% of our revenue budget. Another 4% is coming from our savings account, so we have very little control over our savings, and just 1% is coming from local sources. Here's our general support budget. Board of Ed, district meeting, superintendent's office, finance office increased just 1.8%. HR, personnel, legal, public info increased 3.5%. Operations and maintenance increased $148,000 or 2.9%, and this large increase was due to increase in utility costs for electric and natural gas. Central data processing and printing increased 6.7%. This is due to infrastructure, technology, and software needs that were discovered as a result of a technology audit, and we want to make sure that we're protecting our data. Property and casualty insurance remains the same at $350,000. School association dues and claims and tax refunds also remain the same. I want to note for our tax refunds that we also have a reserve established for any amount paid in excess of what is budgeted for tax refunds to homeowners or businesses who challenge their tax assessment. Our BOCES administrative and capital charges increased 4.8%, and that is due to an increase in the BOCES capital charge. Putnam Northern BOCES established a capital reserve this year, which requires additional contributions to help repair their facilities. Our total general support budget is up $263,000 or 2.9%. Our employee benefits budget increased in total $1.3 million. Our pension contributions for both ERS and TRS increased $212,000 or 3.8%. I want to note that the ERS pension contribution actually decreased slightly from this past year. However, the increase in the TRS rate far exceeded the decrease in the ERS, and the net is an increase of $212,000. Social Security increased by $102,000 or 2.6%. That's right in line with contractual increases. Dental health and other benefits increased by over $1 million or 7.3%. Again, that's due in part to premium increases and also newly insured employees. Again, our employee benefits budget increase is $1.3 million or 5.7%. So as this little girl is pondering here, she's thinking and she's realizing that this just simply doesn't add up. So on the left side of the screen, we have our revenue budget drivers and the amount of additional funds available for next year's budget. Our tax cap allows for a $1.6 million increase in our revenue. It's controlled by the state. The state is determining that number. Our state aid is increasing by $555,000. Again, the state, of course, is controlling that number. Other revenues and appropriate fund balance have increased $442,000. Again, that's related to the pilot agreement, payment in lieu of tax arrangement, that added $442,000 to our revenue budget. This one-time allocation of our appropriated fund balance for our savings is going directly to the JFK paving project. There is a net zero budget impact. There is no additional cost on the taxpayer. But that's increasing our budget by $960,000. So our total projected revenue budget is increasing by about $3.5 million. But as you'll see here, it's being consumed by just three items for the most part. Pensions and Social Security are increasing $314,000. Dental health and other benefits are increasing by over $1 million. Our debt payments are increasing $928,000. Most of this expense is being paid from our increase in our tax cap and our state aid through our building aid. And then again, the JFK paving project is a one-for-one from our accumulated savings. But you see that just these three items, these four items here, have an expense of $3.2 million. So of our available $3.5 million, 3.2 of it is being consumed by these items right here. And that only represents a third of our budget, meaning we only have $351,000 available for the rest of our 67% of our budget. And it's very, very challenging for us when we're building a budget and the state is controlling our revenue through our tax cap and the state's controlling our revenue through our state aid. Yet the state is also increasing our pension contributions. Obviously, these other items are contractually obligated, so they're unavoidable. Our debt payments are unavoidable. And this is, again, the JFK paving project is funded entirely by a one-time fund balance allocation. So it's very challenging in this environment, and it's not sustainable, and the math simply doesn't add up. So here are some strategies for closing the budget gap. We've already met with each of our building principals and department heads and discussed freezing our departmental budgets at 17-18 levels. We're going to look at all retirements and see if there's an opportunity to not fill a position that was vacant due to a retirement. And a retirement incentive was offered to the Teachers Association and also the Administrators Association. Those notifications are due on Thursday, March 29th. And as always, we look for shared service opportunities with both other local school districts and also our BOCES. Another important factor to consider is the adopted state budget. We're hoping that we get additional funding from the state. There are a number of other important slides that are following this slide, which you can review, and we will be discussing in more detail at our April 10th budget meeting. Please join us April 10th at the boardroom at the Brewster Central School District Office, 30 Farm to Market Road in Brewster. Thank you.